The rise of the Soviet Empire, how the world's deadliest superpower was born. In 1917, Russia was a crumbling empire on the verge of total collapse. A broken military bleeding out on the Eastern Front. A starving population rioting in the streets. And a Tsar so completely disconnected from reality that he didn't see the revolution coming until it was already at his door. His name was Tsar Nicholas II, the last emperor of Russia, a man whose staggering incompetence would cost him his throne, his empire, and ultimately the lives of his entire family. Within just a few years, a small group of radical revolutionaries had seized control of the largest country on earth, built the most powerful totalitarian state in human history, and set the stage for a Cold War that would hold the entire world hostage for half a century. This is how they did it, and the dark secrets history never told you. By 1917, the Russian Empire was already dead. It just hadn't fallen over yet. 3 years of catastrophic losses in World War I had shattered the Russian military. Over 1.7 million soldiers were dead, millions more wounded, captured, or simply walking away from the front lines and refusing to fight. Back home, food shortages in major cities were triggering bread riots. Factories were shutting down. Workers were striking. The entire industrial backbone of Russia was beginning to crack. The people had completely lost confidence in Nicholas. While his country burned, Nicholas spent his days writing diary entries, obsessing over the weather, shooting crows in the palace gardens, and playing dominoes with his servants. He genuinely did not understand what was happening to his empire. In February 1917, the dam finally broke. Mass protests in Petrograd turned into a full revolution almost overnight. Nicholas abdicated. The 300-year-old Romanov dynasty, one of the most powerful royal families in human history, simply evaporated. A provisional government took control, but it made one catastrophic, fatal mistake. It kept Russia in the war. That single decision would cost them everything. Vladimir Lenin, the founder of the Bolsheviks and the most dangerous revolutionary alive, had spent years in exile waiting for exactly this moment. He was a radical Marxist who believed violent revolution was not just inevitable, but absolutely necessary. Lenin returned to Russia in April 1917 in a sealed train car provided by Germany, who calculated correctly that he would destabilize Russia and knock it out of the war. They had no idea what else they were unleashing on the world. Lenin was a political genius of the most dangerous kind. He understood that the Russian people didn't want ideology or revolutionary theory. They wanted 3 things: peace, land, bread. His entire political program reduced to those 3 words. While the provisional government debated and hesitated, Lenin moved. On the night of October 25, 1917, Bolshevik forces seized key government buildings, communication centers, train stations, bridges, and the state bank in Petrograd. The October Revolution, one of the most consequential events in human history, was over in a matter of hours. The provisional government collapsed without a meaningful fight. Power, as Lenin himself famously said, was simply lying in the streets, and he simply picked it up. What followed was not the workers' paradise Lenin had promised. It was something far darker than anyone who had supported the revolution could have imagined. Within weeks, the Bolsheviks created the Cheka, the secret police, specifically designed to crush all opposition to the new regime. The man Lenin chose to lead it was Felix Dzerzhinsky, founder and first director of the Cheka, and one of the most feared men in Soviet history. Red Terror became official government policy. Priests, aristocrats, political opponents, former police officers, anyone deemed even a potential threat to the revolution was arrested, shot, or sent to forced labor camps. An estimated 100,000 people were executed in the first 3 years alone. A brutal civil war exploded across Russia from 1918 to 1922. The Red Army fought the White Army, a loose coalition of monarchists, Democrats, foreign interventionists, and anyone who wanted the Bolsheviks gone. The Bolsheviks won not because they were loved, but because they were ruthless, disciplined, and utterly without mercy. Entire regions that resisted were deliberately starved into submission. When Lenin died in January 1924, he left behind a one-party state, a secret police apparatus, a propaganda machine, and a population too exhausted, too traumatized and too terrified to resist. Into that vacuum stepped a man who would make Lenin look almost reasonable by comparison. Joseph Stalin was not supposed to win the struggle for power. His rivals considered him a political lightweight, a crude, uneducated Georgian with no real intellectual standing in the party. Leon Trotsky, the brilliant military commander of the Civil War, was widely expected to succeed Lenin. They all underestimated Stalin. Fatally. Stalin outmaneuvered every single rival through patience, paranoia, and an absolute willingness to destroy anyone who stood in his path. He built alliances and then destroyed the allies. He made promises and then eliminated the people he made them to. By 1929, every rival was dead, imprisoned, or in exile. Joseph Stalin had absolute power over the largest country on earth. What he did with that power remains one of the greatest crimes in human history. Forced collectivization of agriculture destroyed the entire farming class and deliberately triggered a famine, the Holodomor, that killed between 3.5 and 7 million Ukrainians alone. Men, women, and children starved to death, while Soviet officials confiscated every scrap of food from their villages. The Great Purge of 1936 to 1938 saw Stalin systematically execute his own military commanders, his own party members, his own closest allies, anyone who might ever challenge him. An estimated 750,000 people were shot. Millions more vanished into the Gulag, a network of forced labor camps stretching across Siberia and the frozen north. And here is the darkest secret of all. The Western world knew. Western governments, Western intellectuals, Western journalists watched what was happening and looked away. Some actively denied it. New York Times correspondent Walter Duranty won a Pulitzer Prize for reporting that flatly denied the Ukrainian famine was happening, while millions were dying. By 1945, the Soviet Union had defeated Nazi Germany, absorbed half of Europe into its iron grip, and emerged as one of only two superpowers left standing on Earth, dividing the entire world into two armed camps. The Soviet Empire was not born from hope or justice or the liberation of the working class. It was built on a foundation of lies, terror, engineered famine, and the systematic murder of anyone who dared to resist or even question. 30 million Soviet citizens died under Stalin's rule alone, not in war against a foreign enemy, but killed by their own government. The men who promised bread gave famine. The men who promised peace built the most militarized state on earth. The men who promised freedom created the most comprehensive surveillance and terror apparatus in human history. And yet this empire would cast its shadow over every corner of the world for nearly 5 decades. Funding wars on every continent, toppling governments, pointing thousands of nuclear warheads at cities around the globe. How this empire finally collapsed from within, and the dark secrets buried in that collapse, is a story just as shocking, just as dark, and it's coming soon.